Hello, and welcome to the Pittsburgh City Council regular meeting of Tuesday, November 19th, 2019. My name is Louise Chris, and with us today is Philip Choate, our sign language interpreter. The following is a list of legislation to be introduced by Pittsburgh City Council. Councilman Reverend Ricky V. Burgess presents Bill 2303, Resolution amending Resolution 206 of 2019, authorizing the mayor and the city solicitor to enter into a professional services agreement with Campbell, Durant, Beatty, Palumbo, and Miller for professional legal services and expert advice regarding labor matters by increasing the total cost from $220,000 to $305,000. Bill 2304, Resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of finance to enter into agreement with Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney to serve as bond counsel for the purpose of rendering any and all necessary opinions with respect to the bond and preparing such additional documents as may be necessary. Total cost shall not exceed $85,000 over a 3-year period and shall be paid using proceeds from the debt insurance. Bill 2305, Resolution authorizing the mayor and the Department of Finance to enter into a grant agreement with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Office of Commonwealth Libraries to receive a Keystone Recreation, Park, and Conservation Fund grant monies in the amount of $750,000 that will be used by the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh to renovate the library for the blind and physically handicapped. Bill 2306, Resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of finance to enter into a cooperation agreement with the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh regarding the library's use of the $750,000 in the Keystone Recreation, Park, and Conservation grant monies for the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh to renovate the library for the blind and physically handicapped. Councilwoman Deborah L. Gross presents Bill 2307, Resolution providing for the designation as a historic structure under Title 11 of the Code of Ordinances that certain structures known as the Joseph J. Weiss Jr. Federal Courthouse located at 700 Grant Street. Bill 2308, Resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of city planning of the city of Pittsburgh to accept a grant from the Pennsylvania Museum and Historical Commission in the amount of $22,000. This grant will be used in conjunction with the department funds to execute a contract with Michael Baker International for architectural inventory of historic structures in the Oakland and Upper Hill neighborhoods of the city, not to exceed $102,000. Councilwoman Darlene M. Harris presents Bill 2283, Resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Human Resources and Civil Service Commission to enter into an agreement or agreements with UPMC Work Partners Life Solutions for services relating to the administration of the City of Pittsburgh's Employee Assistance Program and for a sum not to exceed $150,000 over a 3-year period and for the payment of the cost thereof. Bill 2284, Resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Human Resources and Civil Commission to enter into an agreement or agreements with the Connect Your Care for services relating to the administration of the City of Pittsburgh's Flexible Spending Account program and for a sum not to exceed $23,100 over 3 years and their payment of the cost thereof. Bill 2286, Resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Office of Management and Budget to enter into a cooperation agreement or agreements with Partner for Work for the shared operation and administration of the Workforce Development Fund for a period of 2 years from the opening of the fund in an amount not to exceed $250,000 and for the payment of the cost thereof. Bill 2309. Resolution amending Resolution 692 of 2015 entitled Resolution Providing that the City of Pittsburgh enter into a professional services agreement or contract with the Industrial Organizational Solutions for professional consulting services in connection with the police lieutenant and police sergeant position job analysis, the development, administration, and scoring of the new written examinations, and development, assessor selection, administration, and scoring of the new oral board examinations, and providing for the payment of the cost thereof by increasing the authorized amount by $50,000 and by extending the term 1 year. Councilman Corey O'Connor presents Bill 2310, resolution adopting the plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewage facility plan for 308 Miltonberger Street. Bill 2311, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewage facility plan for 2908 Smallman Street land development project located at 2908 through 2916 Smallman Street. Bill 2312, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewage facility plan for the 614 Edmund Street duplex. And 2313, Bill 2313, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of the City Planning, in cooperation with the director of the Department of Public Works, to accept funds from the Allegheny Regional Assets District in an amount of $500,000 to fund public art projects in the Emerald View Park, Frick Park, Highland Park, Riverview Park, and Shenley Park. Councilwoman Teresa Cale Smith presents Bill 2314, resolution providing for a contract or contracts or the use of existing contracts and agreement or agreements or the use of existing agreements, providing for the design, repair, maintenance, improvements, emergencies, and or the purchase of materials, equipment, and supplies in connection with the Liberty Avenue Highway Safety Improvement Program project, and the reimbursement agreement or agreements with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Department of Transportation, and providing for the sum of the cost thereof not to exceed $797,570.66. Bill 2315, resolution authorizing the mayor of the City of Pittsburgh and the director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to apply for grant funding from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation under the Multimodal Transportation Fund to provide funding for sidewalk construction, curb reconstruction, street and pedestrian lighting, and small retaining walls on Irvine Street between Garfield Avenue and Berwick Street / Lewis Playground. This grant proposal includes an ask of $840,000 with a local match of $356,452 included in the 2019 City of Pittsburgh capital budget. In the event the grant is awarded, this resolution provides for an agreement and expenditures not to exceed $1,196,452 for this stated purpose. Bill 2316, resolution authorizing the mayor of the City of Pittsburgh and the director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to apply for grant funding from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation under the Multimodal Transportation Fund to provide funding for the design and construction of the Davis Avenue Bridge. This grant proposal includes an ask of $1,803,533 with a local match of $772,904 $43 included in the 2020 City of Pittsburgh capital budget. In the event the grant is awarded, this resolution provides for an agreement and expenditures not to exceed $2,566,476 for this stated purpose. Bill 2317, resolution authorizing the mayor and the directors of the Department of Public Works and the Department of Finance on behalf of the city to enter into agreement with Duquesne Light Company to provide an easement to Duquesne Light Company and in accordance with Resolution 564 of 2019, allowing for the erection installation to provide for electricity to power the neighborhood, including Highland Park and its amenities, and the use of underground electrical system associated with apparatus upon the city's property at the Forest Division on Stanton Avenue in Highland Park for the purpose of electrical services. Councilwoman Erica Strausberger presents Bill 2318, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Innovation and Performance to enter into an amended agreement with B3 Solutions for further provisions of software maintenance and support services, the development of critical applications, the possible transition guidance for the sum not to exceed $1,709,321 over a 5-year period. This concludes the reading for today, Tuesday, November 19th. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this regular meeting of Pittsburgh City Council for today, Tuesday, November the 19th, 2019. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Reverend Burgess, Mr. Coghill.
Here.
Ms. Gross.
Here.
Mrs. Harris. Mr. Lavelle. Mr. O'Connor.
Here.
Mrs. Cal-Smith.
Here.
Ms. Strasburger.
Here.
Mr. Kraus, present.
Here.
6 members present.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. May I ask you all to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all very much. I do have one brief early meeting announcement. Immediately after we adjourn this meeting, we will go directly into our budget overview of the Mayor's 2020 budget with a presentation by Finance Chair Councilman Burgess, who is not with us today. I believe those duties will be filled then by Council Budget Director Bill Urbanek. And this will be the official beginning of Council's budget hearing process. Then tomorrow, Wednesday, November the 20th, budget hearings will begin at 1:30 p.m. with the Departments of Parks and Recreation and Mobility and Infrastructure. Our next order of business is proclamations. There are none to be presented today. There are 3 to be read into the record. We have one from myself, one from Councilman Lavelle, and one from Councilman O'Connor. Madam Clerk. It's still 10 after 6.
Councilman Lavelle presents. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh does hereby declare November 24th, 2019 to be Northside Church of God Day in the City of Pittsburgh. Councilman Corey O'Connor presents. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh does hereby recognize the critical role that the Greenfield Baseball Association has played in the community, commends those GBA volunteers who have given unselfishly, and be it further resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh does hereby declare Saturday, November 16, 2019 to be Greenfield Day in the City of Pittsburgh. And Council President Bruce Kraus presents. Be it further resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh does hereby declare November 20th, 2019 is Transgender Day of Remembrance in the City of Pittsburgh.
May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. That completes the proclamation portion of the council meeting and takes us into public comment. Anyone here this morning wishing to speak to City Council, of course, has 3 minutes in which to do so. I do want to take this opportunity to remind everyone here that the rules of council are clear when they state that comment is limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation which are at this time or could at another time come before council. We will not permit profanity, and we will maintain order at all times. I ask that you would please begin by giving your name and the neighborhood in which you reside for a public record. The green light will indicate the start of your 3 minutes. When the yellow light comes on, you'll have 1 minute to summarize your thoughts. When the red light comes on, you'll need to relinquish the podium. May we have our first speaker, please? Okay, good morning, Dr. Miller. Madam Clerk, I don't have an agenda.
Dottore Rinaldo Leon Molinaro, Bloomfield, Pittsburgh City, and Piccolo Italia, New York City. Global Intelligence Society candidate for President 2020. GlobalIntelligenceSociety.org, American Chemical Society. My mother was an Italian-American, Virginia Santora Ricca, Anna Magnani type, Mama Roma. Outside of that, Joan Crawford, torch song, two-faced woman. Very brilliant, very beautiful, and very, very intense. Compared alphabetically, orthographically, phonally, and semantically with Francais, Espanol, Deutsch, and Russian, Italian is the closest to English. So if you want to improve your English, learn Italian. Concern of council is carbon. I'm a carbon emitter. Mr. Peduto is a carbon emitter. All of you are carbon emitters because you breathe out, at least. So is the government here and the CLP. On 22 October 2019 in the morning, ABD, almost Dottoressa, Gross District Representative 7, offered will of council, though no citizen critique was allowed, supporting the U.S. House of Representatives bill on Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which, quote, imposes an annually rising national carbon tax. That's a yearly tax on carbon emissions, which means on carbon emitters, individuals and institutions. On the same day, 22 October, I emailed Ms. Gross. She urged in her proclamation, will of council, that we act to use her word, effectuate this idea. Quote, assuming the core rightness of carbon taxation as a way to try to reduce the effect of the anthropogenic contribution to global warming, you do, are you willing to introduce legislation at the local Pittsburgh City Council level to carbon tax Pittsburgh individuals and institutions? I received no response from Ms. Gross, who is a city councilor and a CLP trustee. The CLP emits carbon particulates all over the city. No answer from her. Diminutiva, hysterica. I think that this shows a lack of will to effectuate, and I find it unpersuasive.
Thanks, Dr. Miller. May we have our next speaker, please? Are there any other speakers wishing to address council this morning? Okay, seeing none, that will close the public comment portion of the council meeting and take us into presentation of papers. We will begin with our Chair of Finance and Law, Councilman Burgess. May I have Councilman Coghill for Councilman Burgess?
President.
Good morning, Councilman. Thank you.
Councilman Reverend Burgess presents Bill number 2303, resolution amending resolution number 206, authorizing the mayor and the city solicitor to enter into a professional services agreement with Campbell, Durant, Beatty, Palumbo, and Miller for professional legal services and expert advice regarding labor matters by increasing the total cost from $220,000 to $305,000. Bill number 2304, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into an agreement with Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney to serve as bond counsel for the purpose of rendering any and all necessary opinions with respect to the bonds and preparing such additional documents as may be necessary. Total cost shall not exceed $85,000 over a 3-year period, 2020, 21, and 22, and shall be paid using proceeds from the debt issuance. Bill number 2305, resolution authorizing the mayor and Department of Finance to enter into a grant agreement with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Office of Commonwealth Libraries to receive Keystone Recreation, Park, and Conservation Fund grant monies in the amount of $750,000 that will be used by the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh to renovate the libraries for the blind and physically handicapped. Bill number 2306, resolution authorizing the mayor and Director of Finance to enter into a corporation agreement with the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh regarding the library's use of the $750,000 in Keystone Recreation Park and Conservation Grant monies for the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh to renovate the library for the blind and physically handicapped.
Thank you very much. May I ask the indulgence of a member to make a motion on 2305 and 06 to waive the rules that this may appear tomorrow? This is simply for the library to receive a Keystone grant for the renovation of the library for the blind and physically handicapped. It's very common that we do this.
So moved.
Second.
In a second, thank you. And discussion? Thank you. Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Thank you very much. I appreciate you helping to move that along. Councilman Coghill, our Chair of Urban Recreation.
No new papers, Mr. President?
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Gross, our Chair of Land Use and Economic Development.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Gross presents, Bill number 2319. Resolution calling for transparency and oversight in regards to previously approved corporation agreements, contracts, leases, and special agreements with the Pittsburgh Park Conservancy in light of a voter-approved referendum measure to amend the Home Rule Charter. Bill number 2320, resolution authorizing and directing the Pittsburgh City Controller to perform an audit of all contracts, agreements, and leases between the city and the Pittsburgh Park Conservancy, as well as the administering agency, departments, authorities, and entities within the controller's jurisdiction to do so, pursuant to the powers outlined in the Home Rule Charter. Bill number 2307, resolution providing for the designation as a historic title under Title 11 of the Code of Ordinances that certain structure known as the Joseph J. Weiss Jr. Federal Courthouse, located at 700 Grant Street in downtown 2nd Ward of the city. Bill number 2308, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of city planning to accept a grant from the Pennsylvania Museum and Historical Commission in the amount of $22,000. This grant will be used in conjunction with department funds to execute a contract with Michael Baker International for an architectural inventory of historic structures in the Oakland and Upper Hill neighborhoods of the city, not to exceed $102,000.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, one quick question. What was the bill number on the first Parks Conservancy piece, 23? Thank you. Thank you very much.
And if I may, just briefly, point of order.
Sure.
Madam Clerk, the co-sponsors on 2319 and 2320 are Gross, Coghill, and Cale Smith, and I believe that Councilwoman Harris would like to be added as well.
Great.
Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Harris, our Chair of Human Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Harris presents Bill number 2283, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Human Resources and Civil Commission to enter into an agreement with UPMC Work Partners Life Solutions for services relating to the administration of the City of Pittsburgh's Employee Assistance Program for a sum not to exceed $150,000 over 3 years. Bill number 2284, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Human Resources and Civil Commission to enter into an agreement with Connect Your Care for services relating to the administration of the city's flexible spending account program for a sum not to exceed $23,100 over 3 years. Bill number 2286, resolution authorizing the mayor and Department of the Office of Management and Budget to enter into a cooperation agreement with Partner for Work for the shared operation and administration of the Workforce Development Fund for a period of 2 years from the opening of the fund in an amount not to exceed $250,000. Bill number 2309, resolution amending resolution number 692 that provide for the city enter into a professional services agreement with Industrial Organizational Solution, Inc. by increasing the authorized amount by $50,000 and by extending the term 1 year.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilwoman Harris.
Nothing.
I have here your desire to waive the rules on Bill 2286.
No.
Okay, we won't do that then. Our next committees are Committee on Public Safety Services, and our chair is Councilman Lavelle.
No new papers, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman O'Connor, our chair of Intergovernmental Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman O'Connor presents Bill number 2310, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for 308 Milton Street. Bill number 2311, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for the 2908 Smallman Street Land Development Project. Bill number 2312, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for 614 Edmund Street Duplex, 614 Edmund Street. Bill number 2313, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of City Planning in cooperation with the director of the Department of Public Works to accept funds from an Allegheny Regional Asset District Radical Impact Grant in the amount of $500,000 to fund public art projects in Emerald View Park, Frick Park, Highland Park, Riverview Park, and Shenley Park.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilwoman Teresa Kell Smith, our chair of Public Works Services.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Kell Smith presents Bill number 2314, resolution providing for a contract or agreement for the design, repairs, maintenance, improvement, emergencies, and/or the purchase of materials, equipment, and supplies in connection with the Liberty Avenue Highway Safety Improvement Program project, and providing for a reimbursement agreement with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, and providing for payment of the cost thereof not to exceed $797,570.66. Bill number 2315, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to apply for grant funding from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation under the Multi-Module Transportation Fund to provide funding for sidewalk construction, curb reconstruction, street and pedestrian lighting, and small retaining walls on Irvin Street between Greenfield Avenue and Berkowitz Street, Lewis Playground. This grant proposal includes an ask of $840,000 with a local match of $356,452 included in the 2019 capital budget. In the event the grant is awarded, this resolution provides for an agreement and expenditures not to exceed $1,196,452 for this stated purpose. Bill number 2316, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to apply for grant funding from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation under Multi-Module Transportation Fund to provide funding for the design and construction of the Davis Avenue Bridge. This grant proposal includes an ask of $1,803,533 with a local match of $772,943 included in the 2020 capital budget. In the event the grant is awarded, this resolution provides for an agreement and expenditures not to exceed $2,576,476. Bill number 2317, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Works and Finance on behalf of the city to enter into an agreement with Duquesne Light Company to provide an easement to Duquesne Light and in accordance with Resolution 564, allowing for the erection, installation to provide for electricity to power the neighborhood, including Highland Park and its amenities, and use of an underground electrical system and associated apparatus upon the city's property at the Forestry Division on Stanton Avenue in Highland Park for the purpose of electrical services.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilwoman Strasburger, our Chair of Innovation, Performance, and Asset Management. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Strasburger presents Bill number 2318, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Innovation and Performance to enter into an amended agreement with B3 Solutions, Inc. for further provision of software maintenance and support services, the development of critical applications, and possible transition guidance for a sum not to exceed $1,709,321 over a 5-year period.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The chair has no new papers. We are going to go into unfinished business, and before us is the appointment of Jennifer Richnavsky as a member of the Ethics Hearing Board. Our interview was held on November 13, 2019. Do you need to read the bill, Madam Clerk? I think, right? Okay.
President presents Bill number 2296, resolution appointing Jennifer Richnavsky to serve as a member of the Ethics Hearing Board for a term of 3 years to expire June 30th, 2022.
Great. May I have a motion to approve, please?
So move.
May I have a second? Do we have further discussion? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. So noted, Councilwoman Harris. That takes us into reports of committee for final action. Our first committee of the morning is our Committee on Finance and Law. Our chair is Councilman Burgess. May I have Councilman Coghill
President.
for Councilman Burgess. Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman Reverend Burgess presents Bill number 2298, report of the Committee on Finance and Law for November 13, 2019, with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 2196, resolution providing for the sale of certain property acquired by the city at tax sale, item A through E, 1815 Rialto. Bill number 2198, resolution authorizing the issuing of a warrant in the amount of $25,212.50 to Corns Ferry for professional services rendered in connection with labor arbitration. Bill number 2199, resolution authorizing the mayor and the city solicitor to enter into a professional services agreement with Segal Waters Consulting for professional services rendered in connection with labor arbitration in an amount not to exceed $52,538.75. Bill number 2273, resolution authorizing the issuing of a warrant in the amount of $5,258.20 to Levy Convention Centers for costs incurred for Government Alliance on Race and Equity Training.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. You've heard the reading and the title of the bills under our Finance and Law Committee. Do we have further discussion on any of these bills? Okay, seeing none, the bills are now ready for final action, and all in favor of the passage of the bills will vote aye when the names are called. Those opposed will vote no. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mrs. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Mrs. Kelsmith.
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger.
Aye.
Mr. Kraus, President.
Aye.
Ayes 8, no 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The bills having received the legally required number of votes are finally passed. I'm in a good mood this morning, Councilwoman. Our next committee is our Committee on Public Safety Services. Our chair is Councilman R. Daniel Lavelle. Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman Lavelle presents Bill number 2299, report of the Committee on Public Safety Services for November 13th with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 2251, resolution providing for the issuing of a warrant in favor of Power DMS, Inc. in the amount of $21,800 for document management software for the Department of Public Safety, Bureau of Police.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. You've heard the reading and the title of this bill under our Public Safety Services Committee. Is there further discussion on the bill? Okay, seeing none, the bill is now ready for final action. All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye when the names are called. Those opposed will vote no. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mrs. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Mrs. Cal Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger.
Aye.
Mr. Kraus, President.
Aye.
Ayes 8, no 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The bill then, having received the legally required number of votes, is finally passed. Our next committee of the morning is our Committee on Public Works Services with our Chair, Councilwoman Teresa Kell Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Kell Smith presents Bill number 2300, report of the Committee on Public Works for November 13, 2019, with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 2175, resolution taken appropriating and condemning by the city for roadway purposes certain property in the 26th ward owned by Ceci Portuguese and known as 45 Cimetière Street, authorizing the payment of just compensation and necessary and incidental acquisition and relocation costs related. Bill number 2248, resolution amending resolution number 632, vacating a portion of Caldwell Street and portions of our Way in the 3rd Ward, 6th Council District by extending the expiration date of the payment from the property owners to the treasury of the city from 105 days to 150 days from the effective date of the resolution, August 1st of 2019. Bill number 2254, resolution amending resolution number 384 to provide funding for the planning of the renovation of the pedestrian tunnel located in Highland Park. The grant proposals include an ask of $139,674.35 with a local match of $24,651.93 to be funded from the 2020 capital budget. In the event the grant is awarded, this resolution provides for an agreement not to exceed $164,326.28 by adding the JDE job number and the actual grant amount. Bill number 2255, resolution amending resolution number 383, which provide for the funding of the renovation of the multi-module trails located in Southside Park by adding the JDE job number and the actual grant amount. Bill number 2256, resolution amending resolution number 385, applying for grant funding for the Greenway Trails and Recreation Program renovation of the Riverview Park entrance at Maradale Avenue by adding the JDE job number and the actual grant amount. Bill number 2257, resolution authorizing the mayor and the Department of Public Works to enter into an agreement with the United States Tennis Association's facilities grant application, should the grant be awarded by USTA, to provide funding for lighting improvements to the tennis court in Shenley Park. The grant proposals includes an ask of $30,000 with a local match of $120,000 included in the 2020 operating budget. In the event the grant is awarded, this resolution provides for an agreement and expenditures not to exceed $150,000.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. You've heard the reading and the title of the bills under our, Committee on Public Works Services. Is there further discussion on any of the bills as presented? Nope. Okay. Seeing none, the bills are now ready for final action. All in favor of the passage of the bills will vote aye when the names are called. Those opposed will vote no. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mrs. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle. Mr. O'Connor. Mrs. Cal Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger.
Aye.
Mr. Kraus, President.
Aye.
Ayes 8, no 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The bills then, having received the legally required number of votes, are finally passed. Next, our Committee on Land Use and Economic Development with our Chair, Councilwoman Deborah Gross.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Gross presents Bill number 2301, report of the Committee on Land Use and Economic Development for November 13, 2019, with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 2250, resolution providing for the implementation of the Residential Parking Permit Program Area MM in the Squirrel Hill Neighborhood Council District 5. Bill number 2269, resolution further amending resolution number 796 by reducing artist image resources by $5,000 and increasing Historic Doychtown Development Corporation by $5,000, and authorizing a subsequent agreement for operation, administrative expenses, maintenance, purchase of equipment, and/or rehabilitation of neighborhood facilities on behalf of the residents. Bill number 2270, resolution further amending resolution number 772 by reducing Northside Leadership Conference by $4,085, increasing public safety AEDs by $4,085, and authorizing a subsequent agreement for operation, administrative expenses, maintenance, purchase of equipment, and/or rehabilitation of neighborhood facilities on behalf of the residents. Bill number 2271, resolution further amending resolution number 779, adopting and approving the 2018 capital budget and the 2018 CDBG program and the 2018 through 2023 capital improvement program by making various amendments and name changes to the city council line items and authorizing a subsequent agreement for operation, administrative expenses, maintenance, purchase of equipment, and/or rehabilitation of neighborhood facilities on behalf of the residents. Bill number 2272, resolution further amending resolution number 863 by amending various CDBG program line items, adding J.D. Edwards financial information, and authorizing a subsequent agreement for operations, administrative expenses, maintenance, purchase of equipment, and/or rehabilitation of neighborhood facilities on behalf of the residents.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. You've heard the reading and the title of the bills under our Committee on Land Use and Economic Development. Do we have further discussion on any of the bills? Okay, seeing none, the bills are now ready for final action. All in favor of the passage of the bills will vote aye when their names are called. Those opposed will vote no. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mrs. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle. Mr. O'Connor. Mrs. Kell Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger.
Aye.
Mr. Kraus, President.
Aye.
Ayes 8, no 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The bills, having then received the legally required number of votes, are finally passed. Our final committee of the morning is our Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs. Our chair is Councilman Corey O'Connor. Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman O'Connor presents Bill number 2302, report of the Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs for November 13th with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 2206, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for the 2330 Penn Avenue condominiums. Bill number 2247, resolution amending resolution number 446 by increasing the maximum amount of $7 million to $10 million to fund affordable housing at the proposed City's Edge development in the uptown neighborhood of the city, increasing the number of parking spaces in the parking garage from 439 to 508, and increasing the number of affordable housing units from 74 to 77. Bill number 2252, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure and the Department of Finance on behalf of the city to execute a declaration of restrictions and covenants over certain city parcels as a condition of a grant for $408,900 provided by the Allegheny County Sanitary Authority Green Revitalization of Our Waterways Program for certain green infrastructure elements of the I-579 CAP project. Bill number 2253, resolution approving execution of a deed by and between the URA and the city for the sale of Block 83P in the 11th Ward, Council District Number 9.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. You've heard the reading of the title of these bills as presented under our Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs. Do we have further discussion on any of the bills? Okay, seeing none, bills are now ready for final action. All in favor of the passage of the bills will vote aye when their names are called. Those opposed will vote no. And would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mrs. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor. Mrs. Kell Smith. Ms. Strasburger.
Aye.
Mr. Kraus, President.
Aye.
Ayes 8, no 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The bills then, having received the legally required number of votes, are finally passed. The chair has some very brief meeting announcements before we go directly into our budget overview. Immediately after council adjourns our regular meeting this morning, we are going right into the overview of the mayor's 2020 budget with a presentation by our budget director, Bill Urbanek. This will formally begin council's budget hearing process. Tomorrow, Wednesday, November 20, budget hearings begin at 1:30 p.m. with the Department of Department of Parks and Recreation and the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. Then also scheduled for tomorrow afternoon with sessions beginning at 3 and 3:30. Council is holding briefings as it relates to the Lower Hill PTD. Budget hearings will continue this week through Thursday, November 21st at 10 a.m. with public safety and 1:30 p.m. with permits, licenses, and inspection. And also next week, due to the Thanksgiving holiday, both council's regular and standing committee meetings will be held on Monday, November 25 at 10 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. respectively. May I call for a motion to excuse our absent member, adjourn this meeting, and go into our budget hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, welcome to the start of City Council's 2020 budget hearings. We are joined by council members Coghill, Gross, Harris, Lavelle, O'Connor, Smith, Strasburger, and Kraus. We do have a quorum. We are beginning the hearings of the overview and policy discussion of the Mayor's 2020 budget proposal as presented to Pittsburgh City Council's Budget Office. With that, I will turn it over to our Budget Director, Bill Urbanek.
Thank you, President Kraus, and thank you, members, for the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm joined by my colleague, Budget Manager Mike Strelick, and we're here to talk about the 2020 Peduto budget proposal. It's a $608.2 million revenue budget, a $608 million expenditure budget. The 5-year plan is a total of $3.2 billion. An expenditure increases this year by $33 million over 2019. Budgeted revenues increased by $26 million. Budgetarily, 900 plus police officers, another 120 recruits coming on this year. I think our current staffing is somewhere around 980 officers, including first year and recruits, which is way above the 900. There is an 8.8% salary increase in fire. That's about $4 million. And there's a 4% increase slated for police salaries right now. That's $3 million, and that's tentative based upon final arbitration results once we have the contract. There's a 3% salary increase for all non-union. There's benefits, implementations of other contracts as well, too, that increase those personnel costs. City's total portion of the pension will be $98 million. We'll continue on with the pay-as-you-go pension, which is way above the MMO. The MMO this year would be $51.5 million. We are also contributing in $26.7 million as required by Ordinance 19, and $19.8 million is the additional what they call MMO plus, but what that does is actually gets us closer to what they call the ARC, the actuarially required contribution. There is a transfer slated for PAYGO this year for $14.6 million, just about $375,000 less than last year's, and a $108 million total capital budget, which Mike will speak about. Debt service this year is $56 million. Revenues for 2020, the $608.2 million. Of to note is going to be our largest source of revenue, which I highlighted or at least put in white. That's real estate taxes, up approximately $3 million from 2019 to $150 million, nice chunk of what we get. Earned income tax, $106 million, up about $4 million, healthy increase there. Payroll taxes at $71 million. Parking is at $60 million. However, I must say parking has been flat the last couple years. So we need to keep an eye on that, especially since that's our pension piece. Deed transfer tax is $43.7 million. This is a result of, and it's a 40% increase, $12 million over last year. And that's a result of a phased-in rate increase. And of course, we know $10 million of those monies go to support the Housing Trust Fund, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. There's $41 million for charges and service and $25.3 million in Act 77 tax relief. It's from our percentage of the additional 1% levied in the county of Allegheny. So all in all, revenue's up $26 million over the 19 numbers. Here's how it's divided up amongst functional units. I've been separating out public safety. That public safety number's up about 4% from last year. General government, everything else we do, is 15%. DPW and DOMI is 10% of the operating. Pension is at 17% of what we of our piece of pie. Benefits is at 14%. And if you note, debt is at $9 million. Now, this is the lowest we're going to see it. Saw it a little lower last year. This is the lowest we're going to see it probably for quite a long time as we continue to have our capital needs that Mike will go into in a bit. I think the lowest we had since was in 1998. It was about $49 million. The cost centers of our legacy cost, and that's going to be pension and debt and benefits, will continue to be problematic as we move on and difficult to address in the future. And I'll talk quickly about people costs as well too. As you can see, 76% of the budget pays for salaries and benefits. 9% is the fixed cost of our debt obligations, as I mentioned. This leaves about 15% for everything else, like contracted services and commodities, some of which council votes on throughout the year, but some of that also is already tied up in multi-year contracts. Of note of the personnel and wages, that's 76%. Public safety makes up about half of the employees of the city, but takes in more than 60% of our personnel costs. Next is the cost drivers page. I'm sorry, this is you'll see it just sort of stuck in there. There is a mistake on the slide from last year, so unfortunately it didn't save properly, but I got it corrected here. So as we move in, you can see the operating department budgets are up 10.4%. The pension OPEB is up 14.4%, or $13 million. Healthcare and workers' comp, mostly in the workers' comp area, is up 4%. Debt service is up 3% as we continue our borrowing. So the total expenditure difference is $33.3 million increase, or 5.8% increase in the total budget, expenditure budget. The outlook. With the, one of the things to note will be, I was doing stuff I shouldn't have done here. Give me a second. Of the note is the operating expenses, is the actual operating result, excuse me. and that would be this piece right here, $225,000. That's a very slim margin. It's approximately 0.03%, and that's of concern as we move through 2020 and the managing of this budget. So there's not a lot of breathing room based upon the numbers that we have in there right now. We will end the year, if all things go right, with a $71 million ending fund balance. That leaves us at about 11.7%, and debt, of course, will be at 9.2%, as noted, which is great. We were, and I think there was a little tweet that went out yesterday, we were around close to 20% of our budget. One out of every $5 was going towards debt service. And I had to congratulate this council and the previous councils, along with support from Act 47, and also low interest rates helped us out too. But we were able to really put a handle on debt. Unfortunately, at the same time, we had a lot of deferred maintenance as a result, which causes other problems. Now, with that, it'll be our segue. We'll hand it over to Mike.
Yes, so this is the high level of the view of the $100 million plus capital budget. Half that's engineering and construction. That's asphalt, bridges, quarter of the slice is a facilities improvement. That's a lot of the deferred maintenance Bill just mentioned. You got it. Maybe more helpful to look at a capital budget by department. Again, half that's DOMI. That's your bridges and whatnot. A lot of small slices on there, including council, CDBG, ULOs will be due a little later this year. By fund source, half that's bond. CDBG is a shrinking slice of the pie, and $30 million is sort of our matching money. So that's we get a lot of that for bridges and whatnot. The total budget, the next slide, 155 deliverables, that's $108 million. That sounds like a lot, but you see on the next slide, we had 450 requests this year for deliverables, including over 100 from council. And we had a lot of money already spoken for, so $25 million is tied up in things council already agreed to, like the Larimer Choice neighborhoods that council agreed to 5-6 years ago, Walnut Streetscape, all the matching funds for our large bridge projects. So the $64 million of bond and capital, you have $25 million already spoken for. You fully fund the asphalt program for $17 million. It's only $22 million to fund over 400 requests. So if you're wondering why some of your specific requests didn't make it in the capital budget, that's maybe part of the reason why. Go to the next slide. This is sort of our where we've come since 2004. We've come a long way. That's great. We're catching up on some of the deferred maintenance. You know, we're able to fund 155 requests now. I remember 2011 we funded like a dozen when we didn't have a capital budget that year. So that's great, but that bond may be worrisome in the future. The next slide is high level, how much bond pay-go we're planning on spending this year into the 6-year capital plan. You'll see the difference on the next slide. So we're borrowing a little bit less than we planned on last year. Last year we were anticipated $60 million every year, so $50 million is what we're planning now. That's great. A little warning there on the very last 2024 pay-go. We see it dropping by a lot since last year. That's due to the tightening of the operating budget in that year. So if we have the $200,000 operating results every year, that's what that eventually leads to. We don't have extra money to pump into our capital fund. It is a separate budget, but of course the capital and the operating budget work together. So all the things that we're funding, the 155 deliverables, those are all great things. Fixing bridges, fixing buildings, working on parks, fixing the heat in this room. But just keep in mind, we're going to be paying for these things for 20 years. So that asphalt that we're laying down this year, we're not going to pay it off for another 20 years. We still have less debt than we've had in prior years. You see in the beginning of that slide is when we got into trouble, when we maxed out our credit card. But if you go to the next slide, we already filled in that debt service cliff when we, was it 2011, 2010, the parking for pensions deal, when we saved the city. Well, we did that by filling in the debt cliff with additional money into our pension fund. So the debt cliff that we were all hoping for, see on the next slide, that was the slide from 2012. So this great thing that was going to save the city, it's still nice. We have less debt this year than we've had in a long time, but it's not that awesome thing we were looking forward to. Next slide's my favorite slide. I send it out every year. We've gotten less in CDBG than ever. Well, I shouldn't say that. We got a tiny bit this more, but that's more than offset by the increased work the city has to do to actually get these dollars. So we have more hoops to jump through than ever. We're required to get independent cost estimates now before we put things out to bid, which defeats the purpose of putting things out to bid and is extra work for no additional value. I usually have an additional slide on here for the trust funds to remind council and the public that there's tens of millions of dollars and dozens of trust funds that don't require annual approval. But the only trust fund of interest this year is the Parks Trust Fund, and we don't have anything, so I got nothing. Back to you, Bill. Let's wrap it up.
There we go. Okay, let's talk about the 5-year plan now. This chart describes the 5-year plan. That part in the bottom that's gold here shows a steady but declining fund balance of $60 to $70 million. You can see we're going down as we go. A reduced pay-go and smaller borrowing may also strain investment. Even after a $51 million pay-go dedication, the 5-year projection of revenue versus expenditure shows a smaller amount in positive operating result of only 4 to 8.7 million, leaving less than 1.5% in its best year. Since Act 47, we have consistently exceeded revenue projections and have come under all our expenditure projections, producing a solid operating result. Management will have to do a really good job, as I mentioned before, from a budgetary perspective and a managerial control perspective, if we're to continue in our fiscal health. The next page here is dealing with that expenditures, sort of a graphical expression of that. The red line, of course, is our expenditures, blue lines are revenues. And as I mentioned, it's about 0.37%, or hundredths of a percent for the difference between. Our best year in this 5-year plan is 1.5%. Typically, we like to be between 1.5% and 2%. And you see that continue to shrink along the way as we close out this 5-year plan. So there could be some concerns, and we'll just have to continue to monitor very closely what we're doing. Hopefully we have some additional revenue that comes in one way or the other, and we'll have to see how that pans out. The cost drivers, I want to talk a bit about public safety. Since 2014, public safety costs have increased $64.7 million, 44%. That averages about 7.4% annually. The budget has increased $127 million, or only 27% of that over that same time period. That's about 4.4% annually. So as those obviously, as those costs increase, you either have to reduce on the other end or find new revenue sources as we move on. The city has minimal control over police and fire personnel costs due to Act 111 binding arbitration. We also are going to have the need for new equipment, such as new fire equipment. You're going to see that in the budget this year under ELA. There's a push to lease fire trucks for this year that'll give us a 7-year obligation, but we'll bring the fleet up to, our fire fleet up to par. You also have the need, as we voted on body cameras, you'll have the need for other technology as it becomes developed. So we may have some tough choices along the way regarding force size, and revenue enhancements may have to be considered as we move along in the future here. 2020-24 challenges, revenue. One of the things that you guys do have coming up is going to be a cable franchise agreement. So that can, with changes in the FCC law and what kind of funds we get, it's going to be important to negotiate the best possible deal to try to maintain that $5 million that we have in the budget right now. Hopefully that it'll either increase or we'll find some other way there. Still missing are taxes such as the billboard tax, which hasn't been fully litigated yet. We receive very little funds from the nonprofits. And of course, we have a small, very small market-based revenue opportunity, revenue line item that should be expanded, and we've talked about that over the past few years. Of course, we're always going to have the issues in Harrisburg dealing with pension reform, nonprofits, Act 111. But as Mayor Peduto mentioned in his address, we really can't depend 100% on the state, but we need to continue to try. Public safety contracts, public safety costs. We have to stop losing arbitrations, but that's very difficult. There's also the uncertainty we have in the federal government as well, too. As we all know right now, what's going to happen with things like the CDBG program and other matching funds for a lot of our infrastructure, our roads and bridges and all that. We're not quite sure. There's also an uncertainty regarding tax-exempt bond status. There is a move last time to remove tax-exempt status from municipal bonds. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but if those things do, these are more challenges that we'll have to deal with. Just to mention, total employee costs was $436 million of that 571 last year, and the OPEB costs and pension and debt is 78 million. Future legislative challenges, I really don't have to tell you guys this. This is the affordable housing issue, our housing stock itself, making sure we have safe housing, inspection, all those things need to be addressed. Issues of equity will need to be addressed. Police relations, climate change, of course. We've seen direct impacts here on climate change with all the flooding and landslides that we had. And we'll need to continue to keep up with technology. One of the big increases that are in this budget is under the Department of Innovation and Performance regarding our computer systems, our security around the computer systems, about $2.5 million. There's a large percentage increase from a $15 million to a $17.5 million budget this year. We'll have to look at the pension itself. The pension, remember, the actual asset minus the parking asset is only about 33% funded. The parking asset is that pay-as-you-go portion, and it allows us to maintain ourselves over 50%. So we need to look at some innovative solutions regarding pension. Oh, sorry. Thank you, sir. And on this page, I had to mention it, the parks referendum tax. It asks the city to create a trust fund separate from the general fund to allow collection and administration of the funds. It has potentially $9 million may be raised. Due to timing, if something was to be enacted now, a separate tax bill would still have to be generated for 2020 that would go out before the end of the first quarter if it was done sooner rather than later. There are no clear plans at this juncture for how the funds would be allocated at this point, so I can't speak about any budgetary impact, either positive or negative on this piece. So it's council's budget now. In closing, I'd like to commend the mayor, budget director Paulus, my colleague Mike Strelick, all the members of council here, and the mayor and Kevin's budget attempts to address many of the needs of the city and many of the issues raised by council members here, as well as their constituents. A couple things of note: the purchase of hybrid police cars and a commitment to electric vehicles and EV infrastructure that was championed by our Councilwoman Erica Strasburger. Equity, diversion, inclusion issues are being addressed that were championed also as well by Councilman Lavelle and Burgess. Lot cleanup, council members Cal Smith and Kraus, and landslide, and well, all members of council, of course, for these things, and landslide flooding and other critical infrastructure needs that are supported by all members. As we move through this process, Mike and I will be here to assist members with any needs, from analysis to creation of amendments. So Once again, it's your budget now. Thank you for your time.
More questions?
If you have questions, go ahead.
Sure.
Glad
Well,
to
first,
try to answer.
I want to thank you once again, you and Michael both, for encapsulating and summarizing for us what can be a very daunting task of understanding the budget. But every year you come out and you give us these well-presented, encapsulated ideas that are easy to incorporate. And so first, I just want to recognize your work and thank you for
We thank you.
always coming through. Specific questions that I have were leaving room for allocation to the hunger groups, as we always do. Is that something that is going to be added as an amendment in the budget, or we're already anticipating and planning ahead for that?
We will need to make an amendment for that.
Okay.
That was not included in this year's budget, as it historically hasn't been. But
Yeah,
we
understood.
will need to discuss and figure out what all members are comfortable with doing for that.
Great. I just want to make sure that we do keep our commitment to them. And then, can you compare for me, and if you can't right here, maybe get this to me, our commitment to paving and our commitment to demolition, and what the variation between the two may be? I'm not 100% sure we're as committed to demolition as we may need to be. It's probably 2 million?
It's certainly higher than it's been, 10 years ago, but I believe it's lower than it was last year.
Okay.
And it's also a lot more expensive to demo one house than it was many years ago.
So just that everybody that might be viewing does understand the challenge of demo. It is considerably more expensive than it was in previous years because of federal regulations for the removal of lead, asbestos, and mold. I think when I got here in 2008, we were looking at about $13,000 to take a property down. Now we're somewhere in the vicinity of about $48,000. So 10 properties is $500,000. But having said that, and 5 members just having come off an election cycle, I'm sure members will agree that what I heard out there, probably more than anything else, is do we have a commitment to demolishing properties that really need to come down? So I just wanted to put that out there as food for thought. And once again, really thank you. Honestly, Bill, you and Michael do an amazing job of encapsulating this and presenting it to us to understand, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Teresa, did you want to say something? Oh, I thought you raised your hand. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We usually don't ask questions
No,
during this portion.
okay. Well, no, I just want to echo Councilman Kraus's comments. I mean, for you all to put this in a binder and have it make sense to me, I know you're doing a good job, I could tell you, because there's a lot of particulars in there that, you seem to make common sense out of, which I'm happy to say. I did want to make a comment on this page, okay? We took the first step today, working closely with Councilwoman Gross and Councilwoman Teresa Cale Smith, and, conversing with some others, and really addressing to make sure this public money stays in public hands. We introduced bills 2319 and 2320, and we feel that this is really the first step in ensuring that. I think the public has a lot of questions about it, and you couldn't have said it better right here. So with that, I did want to thank Councilwoman Gross, Councilwoman Cale Smith, with working closely with me. I look forward to presenting a plan that we are going to craft, and with other council members, I'd like to sit down with each and every one of them at some point to discuss this very important issue that we're going to have as to who and where this taxpayer money is allocated. So I look forward to, sitting down with them, and hopefully we can get this question mark resolved and make sure this money stays in taxpayers' hands. Thanks.
Sure. So maybe, Councilwoman, will you let me just sort of respond to that before you go in? I did have opportunity to meet recently with Chief of Staff Gilman, with our solicitor, as well as our Department of Finance, just to sort of try to understand what the role of the council will be in the upcoming months. My understanding, as confirmed through Finance and Law, is that the referendum itself was the amendment to the charter, that the role of the council will be to submit that in code where it needs to exist, but the function of a referendum is the actual amending of the charter. We will need to create a trust fund in which funds will ultimately be deposited. But at this time, much like we did with the library tax, it cannot go out on the first billing of the year because we're simply not prepared to do that. Most likely, it will be a separate billing well into the year, much like we did with the library tax. So it does present the council an opportunity to collectively, all 9 of us, to craft the strategy, if you will, to wrap our brains around the referendum, what it means, what our responsibility is, and how to make certain that the publicly collected dollars are indeed protected and distributed in an equitable manner.
Yes, I just had a question. When you went over the asphalting, that won't be coming out of bond money, correct?
16 million is bond, there's 900,000 for the line striping, which is pay-go, but yeah, it's mostly bond.
Okay, so will it last at least 10 years, the life of a bond?
The asphalt behind my house is like 40 years old, so maybe.
You're in my district, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's probably an alley.
We're going to change that.
But is that what the average is? 10 years?
Typically, it's between 10 and 20 years.
10 and 20?
10 and 20. It's an ongoing debate whether you should include that as capital or as bond. Some communities pay for asphalting unless it's actual road reconstruction out of their operating budget. So,
Can I add, it's amount of traffic on each road. It really dictates the length and what it lasts more than anything, I would say.
Correct.
and buses too.
So actually, that should be utilized on roads that will last at least 10 years, correct?
And I would only add the type of traffic would be a contributing factor as well, too, not just the amount. If there is nothing else from members, the hearings will resume tomorrow. Our budget hearings, let me start that all over again. Okay, take 2. The council's budget hearings will resume again tomorrow, Wednesday at 1 p.m. with the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. And what I need now is a motion to put our budget hearing into recess until we gather tomorrow.
So moved.
May I have a second, please? Second. All in favor? Aye. We're in recess.